We appreciate all of the guests who have appeared on our show and sincerely thank them for providing you, our audience, with useful information. However, the advice our guests provide is theirs, and we encourage you to seek out a professional if you have specific questions about any topic we cover on the Crushing Debt Podcast. On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, investing in alternative assets.
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Sean Yesner, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and I have a guest on this week's episode for you. But before I get to him real quick, I do want to talk about our two now sponsors for the Crushing Debt Podcast. The first is Sam Cohen. He is with Attorneys First Insurance. He writes errors and omissions insurance or malpractice insurance for attorneys and title companies all over the country. Now, he has a particular focus on Florida, where he's located, and Texas, where our guest is located. But if you are a new title company or if you're an attorney starting up your law firm, give Sam a buzz. Contact Sam to get an apples-to-apples quote on what kind of malpractice coverage you might want, what kind of malpractice coverage you have, if he can beat the price, if he can get you a better product. You can contact him at sam@attorneysfirst.com, or the website is attorneysfirst.com. The other one I want to talk about real quick, and I'll figure out a way to get both of these sponsors in at different times so I'm not crushing everything at the beginning of the episode. But his name is Mark Purvis, and he owns Real Time Productions, and he is our editor, so he's the one that makes me sound good. He's the one that makes my guests sound good. He's the one that edits out all the background noise. He's the one that edits out all the ums and the ahs, or most of the ums and the ahs. And so if you need video production, if you need audio production, contact Mark. You can reach him at his website, which is realtimetelevision.com. So now that we've got those done and we've promoted those sponsors, and we do hope that you contact them if you have any of that, I do want to get to our guest. He is a seasoned real estate and cryptocurrency hedge fund manager who doesn't just help protect people's wealth. He's actively protected 3 different U.S. presidents while serving on a Marine Presidential Security Force for a top-secret facility and Department of the White House. Now he focuses on serving investors through alternative asset classes like blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, and specific sectors of real estate. He serves as the VP of Investor Relations for Boron Capital's family of investment funds, whose teams have created triple-digit returns and consistently outpaced Bitcoin. Today, I'm excited to pick his brain to give you all the insider track on how to successfully produce strong returns in the cryptocurrency investments. My guest today is Zach Morrow. Welcome, Zach.
Hey, Sean. Glad to be here.
So I do want to talk about real quick, can you say what 3 presidents you worked with, or is that classified?
No, it's not classified. During my time I served under President George W. Bush and then under the first term of President Obama. So it was at the time Vice President Biden, but now he obviously is President Biden. So that's where the third one comes in. But during active service,
on a technicality,
I got in on the technicality there. So
okay.
The first 2, they were sitting active at the time. The third one's a technicality. So pretty fun stuff.
That's okay. I'm an attorney. I like the technicalities. I'll give it to you. That works. So what is it? Marine one is the helicopter and Air Force one is the airplane. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So from the helicopter, HMX is what we call that there. And they actually are Marines on there. That is a different group, a different company, a different team than what we did. They primarily on the helicopter are serving a different purpose than we did for our purpose. But yes, the Marines handle that.
Okay, cool. Well, that's really interesting. And thank you for your service. Although
I appreciate that.
I don't think that's what the listeners are going to want to listen to all day today. So cryptocurrency. So you're with Boron Capital. Boron Capital is an investment company, right?
Yeah. So an investment firm, we work with investors and then we put together investment offerings, which are private placement memorandums. As an attorney, Regulation D, 506C is the actual offering type. Anybody that's listening, you probably heard of Reg D offerings before. And we fall in that category, that 506C category.
Okay. So you do what people would consider traditional investments, hedge funds and whatnot, but you also have a particular focus in the cryptocurrency market as well, right?
Yeah. So on each fund is going to have its own very specific offer, right? So an investment fund obviously is just an offer where a group is making an offering. And in this case, it is private, right? So it's only accessible through accreditation or accredited investors. And accredited investors can then partner in that fund, take advantage of that offering, which is a specific strategy within inside an asset class or within inside a broader strategy. So for us, we have some that focus specifically on real estate. And then we have some that focus specifically on blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. So it's not one investment into the broad company and then you're working across these different things. Investors are looking at specifically what they want, where they want to allocate and how they want to allocate. And then we put together those offerings and then actively manage them.
Got it. And I think I might have asked the question wrong, which you answered. You did answer the question I was trying to ask, which is that the company doesn't just do cryptocurrency. It's got a lot more that it offers. Cryptocurrency happens to be one segment of what it is the company does or sets up funds for or invests in funds for clients for.
That's correct. Yeah. So company got started back in 2006. And was primarily real estate for really the first, 14 or so years. And it wasn't until the last couple years where we really took a good hard look at crypto and felt led in that direction to be able to expand the team, bring on the right people, the right partnerships, and set up the structure to begin offering that as well. So I'm sure like everybody listening, everybody's got a different level of skepticism, I think, still at this point, as far as that market goes. And so, we were those same skeptics. Yeah. And, it just took over time as we began to dive in deeper to these sectors, we realized that it was something that we really believed in the long-term application, the viability, and, its foundation for an investment class. And that's really what it is it's a completely new industry and investment class.
Right. And I've done a couple of episodes where I've talked about cryptocurrency and I've talked to other different industry people about cryptocurrency, but basically, for those that are either new to the podcast, been living under a rock, haven't heard of cryptocurrency, what is it and why is it having such at this point, a global impact at this point?
It definitely is having a global impact. And for those who are kind of, like you said, new to the space, the idea, because it really is just becoming more and more mainstream at a very quick pace. And cryptocurrency is built on the underlying blockchain technology. And really what blockchain is it's really like a ledger or a database server that can fully bring transparency and security into transactions that happen digitally, right? It's an ongoing record. And for those who aren't familiar with the data industry, it's a very large industry and it's growing day by day. And so if you are of the mindset that the world is going more digital and will continue to go more digital, it implies or at least elicits you to the point that blockchain technology will continue to be needed because it creates an infrastructure for sound exchange of transactions of all types. And then cryptocurrency are specific projects that are built on blockchain and then are actively seeking to solve problems in the real world. Now, granted, there's a lot of them out there that we wouldn't invest into, and you probably shouldn't either as the industry is growing, obviously. But there's some really sound projects that are seeking to solve real everyday problems. And so, I think there's a lot of confusion around what it is. But at its base layer, blockchain technology is really seeking to create an infrastructure that undergirds the digital age, the internet. And then there's a lot of projects, thousands of them actually, that are built with blockchain technology, and each of them do kind of their own unique thing.
Investing in blockchain is more than just buying Bitcoin. So if someone were interested in investing in blockchain, what would they be looking at? What would they be looking for? What are some of the things that you all look for?
Great question. And so, most people have heard of Bitcoin specifically, right? And Bitcoin is unique inside the industry because it is a fully decentralized distributed ledger where there's not a centralized group that is in charge of it. Okay. And so there's not, a CEO of Bitcoin that is trying to manage and operate this thing and has the full decision-making power. It's distributed across tens of thousands of networks, and that network secures it and operates it. But blockchain technology, again, a lot of these projects inside this space are really, again, projects where you do have a team behind it, a team that is serving it, that's making decisions. And so from our standpoint, we're really looking at a couple different tenets. One, we're looking at its actual utilization. What type of problem is this trying to solve in the real world? Okay. Does it have viability when it comes to what it's seeking to solve? Second, we're looking at the actual team behind that. Do we believe that its viability is there and its utility is there? And then do we believe that it has the right team to be able to bring that to fruition or continue to increase the growth within inside of it? Then from there, we're looking at the adoption. How many people are behind it, right? One really neat thing about blockchain technology is that you can audit the transactions and the activity on the blockchain on any given time you want. Everybody has access to it, right? So if I was trying to invest into a company, right? If I'm trying to do venture cap or pick a stock or something like that, I've got to go look at quarterly reports after the quarter's over, and I have to rely on that data that's been audited or not to come in and go look backwards to see what's going on. Blockchain technology, I can actually look in real time and see everything that's happening, millions of transactions or not very many transactions, right? And you're going to see the adoption rate and the utility coming to life right before your eyes. So you have way more information to make great decisions. And so that's a really neat thing is you can go in and see what's actually happening with the coin metrics. What's the market cap? How many people are trading this? How much is moving on and off exchanges? The coin metrics are there and available for everyone to see, which makes it a really, really neat thing where we can kind of look into the back end. So yeah, we're looking at the team, we're looking at the utility, we're looking at the actual coin metrics, which is called tokenomics. And then really just trying to decide what the adoption looks like in this space and where things are going from there. Obviously, you have fundamental analysis and then there's technical analysis. So depending on how you're looking to invest, one's going to be more fundamental based, which would be your longer term choices. If you're trying to pick a project you like and you want a dollar cost average in, or if you're going to trade, if there's any traders on here, they're obviously looking more specifically at some of the charts and the momentum and things like that. But from our standpoint, we do a little bit of both.
One of my biggest questions, I became an attorney in the late 90s, graduated law school, passed the bar late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember back then, everything was about the penny stocks. I'm going to buy it at 1 cent. I'm going to buy it at 2 cents. And now it's up to 6 cents. I'm a bajillionaire. And it seems to me that at this stage in its life, that's sort of what cryptocurrency almost is at this stage of its development. Is there any difference between where we are now with cryptocurrency and where we were with penny stocks, back in the late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah. So one, I would tell you it's a clear distinction, but it's also a broad market. There are incredible projects that have really strong adoption that are actually doing millions of transactions every single day. A penny stock's a penny stock because there's not much behind it right now, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why it's a penny stock. Now, whenever you're actually looking at crypto, you can see which projects are bringing in millions of transactions a day, where there's literally, millions or even billions of dollars moving through these networks and through these programs. You can see what the adoption truly looks like. And so are there projects out there that are not quality projects? The answer is yes. So as of right now, I didn't look at the numbers today. I could pull it up, but there's over 18,000 cryptocurrencies. Wow. And I can promise you, majority of them are not going to amount to much at all.
Right.
And so are there people that are investing in a way where they're hoping to grab something small and, ride the come up? I'm certain there are people that are doing that. And I'm certain that there's projects that are not going to do well. But I'm also 100% certain that there are projects currently that are $100 billion industries that are really just a small fraction. So right now, the market cap of crypto is only about 2 trillion in the store value space, which is really like $150 trillion space. So it's a tiny fraction of where it's starting, but the actual utility and adoption has a lot of room up. And I think the market itself does have a lot of opportunity, which may be why we might make the connection of, where's the opportunity versus the utility right now. But you've really got some strong industries and you've got adoption that's not like, is somebody else going to invest in this penny stock business? Well, right now, you've already got entire nations that are backing cryptocurrency. And the U.S. actually just came out a couple of weeks ago, executive order from the White House stating that they want to lead the way for cryptocurrency. So, I would just tell you that when entire nations are supporting the industry and the U.S. is getting behind it in that way, it probably gives a little bit more validity than the penny stock. But
Although I
That's
think
not a perspective.
no, and I get it. Although I think that provides a little bit of the irony of blockchain and Bitcoin, because a lot of this is to counter the fiat currency, the gold backed of the U.S., which we can debate whether U.S. dollars are truly gold backed today or not. But as I understand it, crypto, part of what makes crypto so attractive is that it's trying to get away from this fiat money system, this money system tied to a country's currency. But now we've got the U.S. coming in to try to back crypto, which didn't we just go in a big circle now where maybe it is less decentralized? I don't know what kind of term that is, more regulated.
Yeah, so this is a very broad category that has many subcategories. And so what I mean by that is typically we paint the brush of cryptocurrency and everybody kind of thinks currency. And the reality is inside this space, you hear kind of like a lot of the major sentiments is like, well, it's currency. If I support the dollar, I don't really believe in all these other things because I believe in the dollar. Well, the reality is majority of these things aren't actually trying to compete with the dollar. The second realization is that other people are looking at it as a store of value. Well, it's a good hedge. Well, it has shown to be a hedge, but at the same time, its major utility inside the market and the way it serves the market, it's not really created in that way. So the potential is much greater than a hedge. But to your point, I think a lot of people, like if you've heard that, you probably are talking to people that would identify themselves as what's called a Bitcoin maximalist. They believe in Bitcoin through and through, and they believe that Bitcoin should be the standard globally as a means of exchange. But not everybody in the space is taking that exact stance, right? And when you think about the thousands of other cryptos, well, a lot of them are doing completely different things. So just for instance, and just to throw out some utility factors here, because, if we just wanted to argue whether or not Bitcoin should be the global currency or not, that'd be a whole different topic. But to understand,
right.
To understand what this market is doing, there's projects out there right now that are providing an infrastructure and a secured infrastructure to allow digital-based businesses to be built, right? And so, like, for example, if you got an iPhone or if you've got an Android, it has a underlying software, the iOS system, right?
Right.
And that's an infrastructure that provides a base for thousands and thousands of applications to be built on top of it. And those are called apps. And each one of those apps do a completely different thing, right? Most people have 25, 50, 100 different apps on their phone. And that's just a small fraction of what's available. And these are all doing different businesses. And every one of those apps needs that infrastructure to be able to create that business. Well, that iOS system would be similar to what's called a layer one cryptocurrency or blockchain. And that's like what Ethereum does. And there's others out there, but most people have heard of Ethereum. But then you have all of these other protocols or businesses that are being built on that infrastructure within inside the blockchain and that technology from that base layer. And what the cryptocurrency actually is, like Ethereum currency, whenever all those things are operating on that system to exchange, there's fees on the transaction and utilization of the system, which then creates movement of the actual coin itself. Now, that's where a lot of the value is coming in, because you're creating an infrastructure that then allows tons of businesses to be built. And some of those businesses being built on those layers are things like payroll systems. There's a payroll system right now that's in the works. It's being built where literally the agreement happens through the smart contract, which is a protocol on the blockchain, where I can have an employee log in. And when they log in, it can begin changing and paying them for their service over the blockchain without any need for a payroll system. And that payroll can be automatically calculated down to the second, the minute, the hour, whatever you want to do. And then the payroll system happens, and it's happening through that agreement. For our real estate investors out there, you can hold on the blockchain. You could hold every title of every deed of every property, right? You have entire businesses built around just trying to do title work. Right. Well, that could all happen now through the blockchain technology, safely, securely, and transparently, where anybody could be able to see the records of ownership at any given time. So again, there's a lot of utility there that's different than just, is it going to be a store of value? Is it going to back the dollar? Is it going to compete with the dollar? So it's many different perspectives.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that analogy of the iPhone with the operating system with the various apps. I'd never heard that before, but I like that analogy. And I do think the real estate industry has to sort of adapt and change, because I'm wondering what the future of title insurance companies and that kind of thing with this blockchain technology coming down. I think the insurance industry probably will have something to say about it at some point. It'll be an interesting development. But I wanted to sort of maybe get back. I know I kind of took us on a tangent here, but you mentioned, what is a cryptocurrency hedge fund and how does that work?
Not that different than any other hedge fund, right? And like I said, a hedge fund is just a private offering. And that offering is operating within inside a specific strategy. So from our side, what we're doing is we're running this fund, and investors then have the opportunity to allocate into the fund. And then they are then a part of that strategy. So they benefit from all of the growth pro rata, right? Based off their investment. So it's not an individually managed account. So like if you go to your financial advisor and you sit down and you say, okay, my name's, Zach Morrow, here's my age, here's what I'm looking for. And then they kind of take your money and then they're going to allocate money for you based off of what their protocols are. This is where investors are coming and they're saying, one, we believe in this product. We believe that you guys can do a good job for us. And we believe that it's going to be a good allocation of our funds. And then when they allocate those funds, they're allocating into that. And then we have what's called an actively managed portfolio. So we're going out and we're actually making selections of where we believe the best cryptos are to hold, how we want to allocate with inside those markets, balancing the portfolio, making certain trades, doing what's called some swing trading. And we have the opportunity to make other trades. So we're helping hedge on downside, increase upside, and then helping them outperform the market. So that's really the goal and the reason why somebody would be looking at a hedge fund. It would be because, one, I know I want to allocate into this space. And two, I'd like to do it with, a team of professionals to help me have my best shot at being successful with inside of it.
Right. And so you mentioned accredited investors. And I know that within the investment market, that is a specific term. You have to meet certain criteria to be an accredited investor, to be called an accredited investor, considered an accredited investor. The thing that's interesting to me, I assume that because you're U.S. based, that those definitions, those qualifications, those regulations apply to you or apply to Boron Capital and the hedge funds and whatnot, even though, again, ironically, what you're investing in is something that's decentralized, being crypto and on the blockchain. Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah. So just like any other investment company, our governing body, SEC, and then we have compliance regulations with certain types of filings that we have to uphold with them, certain standards that we have to uphold with them. And then the same thing from a commodities trading commission as well. There's certain exemptions and different filings and things like that you have to operate with them as well. And so yes, this is a regulated space that doesn't operate any differently than any other hedge fund. If we were just buying real estate or if we were buying certain stocks, there are specific regulations based off of where and how you're operating.
Right.
And we fall under those same U.S. regulations.
Even though what you're investing in being the cryptocurrency itself is not necessarily regulated except through the blockchain, which you sort of mentioned is, and I understand, is peer-to-peer. So you've got the regulations that you have to follow from the SEC and the other governing bodies, even though what's being invested in, the cryptocurrency itself, is not necessarily regulated.
Yeah, so there's certain things that have been regulated as far as what decisions are made. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some of the others are under review of how they want it to operate. But the determination of each individual one is something that's going to take years because there's thousands of projects.
Right.
And each of these projects are currently kind of in the place of, the U.S. is trying to decide how do they want to regulate them? Are they seeing that as a security? Is it a non-security? Is it a commodity? And so that process is happening. And we kind of just take the safest route possible and seek to treat everything as if it was a security. So from our side, from the tax side to the regulation side, we're treating it with a conservative approach. We have to use a third-party fund administrator that has to monitor every single transaction we do. They check they see every, bank record, every transaction. And then we also have a separate third-party auditor that then does annual reviews back over our already regulated daily reviews, basically. Yeah, there's definitely plenty of steps that go along with it, but I think it's good practice, regardless of what you're investing into.
No, I agree. And like I said this before I hit the record button, but I hope that the listeners get a lot out of these episodes. But a lot of times the questions that I'm asking are just because I'm curious. A lot of times I know the answer. I mean, that's one of the things they teach us in law school is never ask a question you don't know the answer to. But there are times where I'm curious. I don't know. So I appreciate that. I want to give out your contact information real quick and then back to a couple more questions before we wrap up. But on LinkedIn, you're ZJ Morrow, Morrow. Facebook is either Boron Capital, Boron Capital, or Zach Morrow, Zach Morrow 633. Also ZJ Morrow on Instagram. It says Blake Templeton on YouTube. And again, I'll post all these, but if you're interested in contacting Zach, if you're interested in Boron Capital, I'll post all those different ways that you can get a hold of him. So I guess one of my last questions here, over the coming months, what is going to be important for investors who want to gain more crypto exposure? What should they be focused on here in the coming months?
I think the first question that anybody has to ask is their time frame and how much they want to allocate. So understanding what type of investor you're going to be is obviously an important decision. Like I said, you can invest, which my perspective from an investment standpoint is if I'm going to be an investor into something, I'm going and finding the projects, the programs that I believe in, and then I want to start investing and allocating money into those for a longer time period. When I talk about time frame, you always want to know what you're investing into, why you're investing into it, and for how long, because the difference would be like if I'm a trader, I might invest into something for 4 hours and then pull back out of it, right? And so those considerations are significantly different than just becoming an investor. But for those of you who are looking to allocate, I'd say, spend more time in your research around cryptocurrency, around this, because not only are major world governments, but the largest banks, the largest investment programs are all seeking to put money into this space. And more allocation and more capital is moving into this space than ever before. I think we're past the time of whether or not it's legitimate or whether or not it's here to stay. It's going to be how much do you want to participate? And so, there's been studies done. Goldman Sachs did a study. Grayscale did a study. Both of it, if they took the traditional 60-40 portfolio and had just allocated 5% of that portfolio towards Bitcoin over the last few years, it would have reduced the volatility of that traditional portfolio and significantly increased the return. So, it's an allocation decision at this point. And then once you've decided that you want to participate, well, then go out and you're going to have to do the education around those projects, or you're going to have to find people that can help support you in making those decisions, or working with a group that is making those decisions on an ongoing basis, which is what we do. So,
very cool. Well, thank you. As we sort of get to the end here, is there anything I didn't ask or anything that you wanted to mention specifically?
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's an interesting thing, for a lot of the listeners. Like I said, we covered this, but it is a newer topic for a lot of people. So, but I firmly believe that it will be here for many years to come. And I firmly believe that there's great opportunity here when done the right way. And so, take the time to get familiar with it. Take the time to make that decision as far as allocation, because not taking any action is still a decision. So regardless of what you decide to do, you need to know why you're doing it. So if you decide not to, that's okay. And you just need to know why you're doing that. And if you decide to go ahead, well, you need to know that too. So spend time on offense, taking the steps to educate yourself and to spend time. And we talked about it before the show, but happy to make that program available if you think that'd be useful.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about what that is? And then what we can do is you can either send me a link or a PDF or whatever it is, and I can attach it here to the notes for when people are listening.
Yeah. So Sean and I were visiting, and he was kind of saying, I've got questions, right? And so I did a Crypto 101 Masterclass last week, and I told Sean I'd be happy to share it with him. And if it'd be valuable for you guys listening, you guys can have access to that as well. Obviously, this was a private event for a couple hundred people in a private wealth group. And it's just kind of a Crypto 101, and we cover a lot of different areas. And so you guys are welcome to have that. I'll share the info with Sean. And then Sean, you mentioned how to get in touch. Obviously, anybody can connect with me on social media, but the easiest way is we have a text line that's pretty simple. And you just text the word info, INFO, to the number 877-771-0615. So you just text info to 877-771-0615. It is a text line, but it actually goes to me. So it'll be me responding. It'll be me that you communicate with. And so, happy to connect further and see how I can help that way as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And again, for those of you listening, I'll put all that in the notes, whatever links, whatever documents, whatever will be there in the notes. And I completely agree with you. I mean, I have a certain segment of clients that real estate, that's all they believe in. That's all they'll invest in. Real estate only. I have another segment of clients that stocks. I don't care about real estate. I'm only gonna go the stock market. And I got another segment of clients. I became rich off crypto. That's all I'm gonna do, and that's all they want. I actually tend to believe that the way to really start to create wealth is to have all of these different pieces working simultaneously to your comfort level. You've got whatever in real estate holdings, you've got whatever in stocks and retirements and insurance, you've got, whatever in crypto. And I think that's really the best way to do it. But again, that's my opinion. If somebody really believes in real estate, knock yourself out and give me a call. I'm happy to help you with real estate. Zach, thank you. I really, really appreciate you being a guest on the show this week. And I did learn. I always tend to learn when I interview guests on the show. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome, Sean. It was my pleasure.
So I think that will do it for this week's episode. Thanks again to Zach Morrow. Again, I'll put all the contact information and any offers and all that stuff. I'll make sure I was taking notes here, so I'll make sure to get that in the show notes. Crypto is a way to make sure that you are able to have more money at the end of the month rather than more month at the end of the money. And so I think that'll do it for this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in and listening, and we will talk to you in next week's episode.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Sean or connect with us on social media. Sean Yesner and Yesner Law, PL, are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.